And according to the message from YouTube, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Full Course Yellow. This is sort of a get together, the show we have when we're not having a show. From the crew at In Pit Lane, we've all sort of just turned up here on a Thursday night, and we're not sure why. But hopefully you'll watch us and you'll be happy. You'll join in the conversation. We'd really love you to do that. If you've got anything to say, any questions you'd like to ask about local, national, or international motorsport, any sort of motorsport, pop it into the live chat here on the YouTube channel. Also, if you'd like to become a part of the conversation, become a part of the panel, you can always do that. You've got to go to Jot Form and fill out just the details. It's someone said, oh, I've got to fill out all the forms. We just need to do that basically to cover ourselves sort of legally and to make sure that we're trying to keep out the idiots, because there's more than enough here already. So we don't need any more. So if you'd like,
I can answer the question as to why.
And
because we're in lockdown, so drugs and alcohol aren't an option. We've got to have something to do with that.
Yeah, alcohol's always. Well, the thing is, we're not under lock. We're semi lockdown, but we're pretty much free at the moment. But that's not the case overseas. Of course, they've gone back into hard lockdown in England and back in France, and so do all the people over there. But I noticed, they're still having Grand Prix. So yeah, good.
So this means I can go and get parts, and Doc finally gets to go and drive his new toy.
Well,
he's looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think
sounds like a plan, Stuart. You're onto it. You're onto something there.
Yeah, I think on the weekend they're probably going to take some of the restrictions off in terms of the 25k limit. So
the Ring of Steel.
Not this weekend, but next weekend we've got meetings at Phillip Island and Sandown. So I'm hoping to get to one of them. I'm going to find out whether that's going to be possible, because they haven't exactly figured out how many people will be allowed. They're still keeping a very tight restriction on the number of people who are allowed to attend those meetings. I'm not sure how that's going to affect media, photographers, and that sort of thing. But anyway, we'll find out.
While you're on meeting, socially distant because we're out in the boondocks of the tracks.
The Sandown one in mid-December looks the most juiciest at the moment, guys and girls.
Yeah, they're going to have two meetings in a row. That was originally going to be the CAMS, the Shannon's Nationals stuff, and also the MG Car Club were going to have sort of a smallish meeting themselves. What they're going to do now is they're going to combine them, so you're going to get the best of both worlds. The interesting thing about this meeting, Tim Macro has pointed out, he's doing a thing where if you're old enough to remember the old days of Formula Libre, which is basically like it's Formula Libre as they now call it Formula Free, which is what Formula Libre means. But that means that we're possibly going to see at Sandown things like Formula 3s, Formula 2s, historic Formula cars, even perhaps historic Formula 1s if somebody wanted to bring one out, if anybody who owns it. They've now got permission apparently to run Formula 5000 as well. Whether we see any S5000s, they might bring them out for a run. So who knows? That could be a really interesting little meeting to have a look at. And I don't know what the situation is in terms of being able to take some cameras out there. I wouldn't mind, actually, because it's so interesting. I wouldn't mind, and something that Stuart and I are going to talk about is what we might be able to do in terms of doing some sort of live streaming of it, just on the cheap, just so it doesn't because these things do cost money. But we can do a few things to make it, to get a signal out there, and so people outside of, if people can't go as spectators, they might be able to sit at home and watch. Big
well, the borders for the states will be still closed to a certain extent, and people are still restricted in movement across Victoria through their own reasons, whether they've haven't got disposable income at the moment, or been busy with life in general. So it's movement hasn't been that easy, and so but you imagine that people that have got a vehicle and have got a category to enter it in on the day at Sandown between the 12th and 13th of December there will be absolutely raging to get out there.
Well, we're looking apparently at possibly even some Carrera Cup racing and the Australian GT. Speaking of Australian GT
Porsches
Championship,
too.
the Porsches and the Australian GT Championship or the Australian GT category. Interesting. The feedback at the moment and the scuttlebutt is that SRO. Stefan Rattel's organisation, the people who basically invented GT3 and run the series formerly known as Blancpain and GT Challenge USA and GT Challenge Asia, are looking as being favourites to get the rights to run the Australian GT Championship, which I think would be absolutely spectacular because they've just got the runs are on the board already. They're heavily involved in the Bathurst 12 hour through the Intercontinental GT Championship, of which Bathurst is the opening round. So it would be really good. It would bring us in line, closer ties with the Asian series, closer ties with Europe, and Stefan Rattel has the credentials and the size to be able to stand up to some of the people who have who really need standing up to. There's been too many people in the Australian GT Championship, I think. You've had people who've just wanted to sort of dip in and have a bit of fun. You've had people who want to take it seriously and run it, run it like a real, professional series at the top level. And
well, the Quins were running it up to, I think, was it 2017 when they were still running it up to that point, and it probably peaked about that point too, didn't it? And it's probably just been sitting there about since.
Yeah, Tony was running it, and I think the thing was that Tony was really didn't sort of he was like he was very casual with us, and he just sort of if things needed changing, he just changed them, and if things needed doing, but he was basically running it more or less for his own entertainment, so that he and Clark had somewhere to play with their cars, and then he handed it over to sold to Jim Manoulios, and then things started to go a bit downhill. A few people started to. He came up with some rules that a lot of people weren't happy with, and the car count went down, and then they had sort of a get together and ironed out all of their problems, and then that didn't seem to make much of a difference. So it would be, I think it'd be really good for the series if Stefan got involved, because it would bring in all of that sort of all of that experience he has running pretty much every other series on every continent on Earth.
Yep. Can't disagree there.
Needs reinvigorating, yeah.
Yeah, because potentially it's a terrific category. The local scene, and it's been sort of confirmed. Anton De Pasquale leaving Erebus and will go up to Dick Johnson Racing to replace Scotty McLaughlin.
Will Davidson,
probably with Will Davidson replacing Fabian. So Fabs has been sort of called out and said, thanks for your time and good luck with your future endeavours.
And he's touted for Brad Jones, who congratulations to Kim Jones, finally been semi-retired for years now, but Kim's decided he's going to step away and hang out and do the grey nomad stuff.
He'll be very missed at that team. Kim was Brad Jones Racing have always been really, really good with their strategies and in the pits and that sort of thing. And a lot of that came from Kim, from their experience out at the Thunderdome, because a lot of people forget that they were pretty dominant out there. Brad as the driver and Kim as the team manager. They were two
NASCARs and one Oscar, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, they had a few cars out there, and they were very successful with most of them. So, and also Kim, a driver in his own right, drove up until recently a number of historic cars. Don't know whether he's given that away, actually. I know he had a Rolt that he was running. We talked to him up at Winton a couple of years back with a car that he had. So he's earned the break now, and he will certainly be missed in terms of he's a smart, wise old head, and that team has often punched above their weight, and a lot of the reason for that is probably because of Kim.
So no mention of the routine competition cautions that used to pop up at Calder or at Thunderdome.
Yeah, well, that's part of NASCAR in general, isn't it? It's like, that's why are they putting out a yellow flag? Well, because television asked them to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ratings were going down. Speaking of ratings going down, Formula One, and
Where'd you get that segue from?
we had the Romania Grand Prix on the last week, and it was yet another win for Lewis Hamilton, and yes, but another third place, another podium for Daniel Ricciardo.
Ricardo, yep.
I'm just wondering, Pete. Do you reckon that? Do you reckon Daniel might be looking at that move to McLaren now and going, "Oh, I might have jumped a bit early."
Yeah.
Another year wouldn't have hurt.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I think he
Look at
was
the ebbs
thinking.
and cycles.
I think he was thinking this year. Maybe his thinking would have been that Esteban Ocon being the French driver, they were going to favour the French driver, but Esteban Ocon hasn't turned out to be as good a prospect as what they thought. So
I think they'd be really
don't rule
disappointed.
out Daniel's talent himself as well as a good driver, so he gets the best out of the car.
Yeah, I mean, McLaren will have the Mercedes engine next year, which is going to be a big advantage, as well. But it's just that everything seems to be coming together at the team now, and he seems to be really enjoying his time there with them, and they seem to be enjoying him, and everyone's going, oh, I've perhaps jumped a little too quickly, and. But yeah, it would be. It'll be good to see him at McLaren. I think it'll be good with Lando Norris, and it'd be interesting to see what the situation is with the Mercedes engines. Whether that gives them that next jump up the ladder, so they can take up and actually genuinely at least.
If they're not getting all the
Red Bull.
if they're not, I was about to say if they're not getting all the goodies from Merck, because they're obviously getting secondhand probably 2020. Engine parts, they'll be definitely competitive with Red Bull, and Adrian Newey and Christian Horner will be running their little legs off to try and keep ahead of them on the park, and because if they get the grip between the bull in their sights, well, look out, because they'll be challenging Red Bull and they'll be wondering what's going on. Helmet will not be happy.
Helmet is never happy.
Boom, boom.
But it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, it wasn't a great race. Alex Albon has probably signed his own death warrant, I think, in terms of his career with Red Bull. I can't see how he can come back after this. I mean, it wasn't a huge mistake, but it was a mistake, and it really. I think they'd be looking at him now, especially when you consider that they've got people like Hulkenberg and Perez sitting there looking for a thing up, let alone all of those young guys they've got running around in Formula 2 and Formula 3.
Yeah.
Can't take the credit for this one, but a mutual friend of mine and yours, Brett, had a little post on FB in the last couple of days. With Kimi Räikkönen signing his 40th 1 year extension deal for 40 years. That was absolutely hilarious. And they even had an old looking Kimi Räikkönen there as well. And God, the guy just, he doesn't age.
He doesn't. I still can't fathom the whole thing about that. Like the wisdom behind it all is as to. I mean, yeah, he's still obviously a great driver. We saw that the other week with his storm through the field. He's a terrific driver, but he's not going to be world champion again. There's a log jam of young drivers, waiting to get into the sport. I mean, if it was like Kimi and a really
probably
young
cheaper
guy,
than him too. Probably cheaper to pay than him as well.
Well, you would imagine so, and I don't know how much. In terms of marketing he gives them, and I think that's the other thing. I mean, in terms of he's not, as we well know, with first-hand experience, he's far from the most media friendly person. He's got a huge following, and a lot of people love him, but he's not a good media performer. And if you're going to sort of advertise your products and all that, it's like and what do you think of this product, Kimmy? Yeah, it's all right.
He works on reverse psychology.
I've never seen reverse psychology work ever.
In motorsport?
No, anywhere.
I think he works on catnip or something.
Maybe
He's
with
on
small
something-
children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last weekend, he actually was at one stage for quite a while was running third. He was up there in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, well, he's got all that experience in making the tyres. Well, he understands the car. I think it'd be like I could understand if they're running him with a really young kid. Like if they'd have brought Schumacher into that team
Yes.
or another really young guy, and said, we want you to mentor this guy through for the next year or so. Take him through, give him the benefit of your wisdom. So
what you said then, actually, I can reiterate, Peter. You're correct. It was half or 3/4 of the way through the race, and as you said, he was up there in the standings because he hadn't pitted. But and that's the fact as he was running. I can't remember. Was it 40 laps on the same set of tyres, and he was getting good feedback from not the commentators necessarily. It was from the people that were tuned in, and he was driver of the day on percentage there for a stint because he was probably shows how to everyone to run around in a pair of tyres that are more than slightly used, probably not close to being on fire.
He certainly got further than on tyres than Max did. I don't know. Max must have hit something. I haven't heard, but boy, that let go quickly. I mean, he was just one minute he was cruising along in third place, and the next minute he was in the gravel, and didn't know much about how he got there. But it was showing sort of later. You could see that the car just that tyre just disintegrated like that.
Yeah.
Max lets go quickly in more ways than one, and not just his driving.
And the size of the piece of debris from the Ferrari that was underneath Kimi Raikkonen's car, that was quite a big size.
When they were talking about it, they were saying, like you picked up some debris. You couldn't see it there, and you sort of went, well, surely it's not having that much of an effect. But then you saw the size of it and thought, it was having an effect.
I said Kimi Raikkonen, I meant Bottas.
Yeah, Bottas, yeah.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, I know the feeling, Pete. I'm half asleep. Stuart would be in that same position. Stuart would be in that same position as now. I mean, what time did you go to bed this morning?
8 a.m.
Yeah. I got up at about. I was up at about 3:30. And I turned on the YouTube stream of Office Hours, and I thought, you're a sucker for punishment.
Yeah, I wasn't going to stay that late, but I ended up doing it.
Yeah. What we're talking about.
I don't have a life anyway, so.
Yeah, well, that's it at the moment. We're all in the thing, but as we're talking about, we gave it a plug last week. Let's give it a plug this week as well. Office Hours. Alex Lindsay's nightly get together of a whole bunch of people from the world of television and video production. That's every night. So what time is it now? Starts at 2 a.m. Our time.
What time is what?
What time does Office Hours start our time?
Okay. The pre-show starts at 1, but the actual show starts at 2.
Yeah, so basically from 2 a.m. it's live streamed. You can go online. You can actually get on the Zoom like you can with this program. If you want to be a part of it, if you're in the television industry and you want to be a part of it, and you want to stay up until stay up all night like Stuart, you can do that. But because of daylight saving at both ends,
now
further and further and further.
Now I just need to find a job title now for probably Zoom technologist, for being able to get the lighting and the sound to work properly and what have you.
Yeah, well,
they're not on Seek yet.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of late breaking news as well, though, too, did you see that moving across the supercars a little bit? You did touch on it before with Anna and Di Pasquale, and Davey Reynolds is not. I think we touched on the subject. He and Barry Ryan aren't getting along. 1 year into 10 years, so let's see how many more of those 9 years that they can still not publicly air their dirty washing. But Newcastle will not be opening next year, the round, obviously because of the life we live in right now. But 2022, they're going to be all guns blazing. They're obviously with Adelaide being scrapped, and we discussed that at length last week. The New South Wales city of Newcastle, I should say, are still going to have to throw plenty of money at supercars, and that's what obviously street events need, rather than actually supercars paying a course to hire it. They don't. Supercars loves a city course because they get paid to do it rather than the other way around.
This is a case of supercars probably falling on their feet again if this takes off, because as you saw after the whole thing about Adelaide last week, the opposition there turned around and said, if we get elected at the next election, we will bring the Adelaide 500 back, and they now have a memorandum of understanding with Supercars Australia to actually do that. Now, I don't know what's in the MOU, but I would imagine that one of the things might be that if they do come back and run in Adelaide, that it will actually be Supercars events that runs the race, as they do with Townsville and Newcastle and all the rest of it. So that's sort of more money in their kick and more experience, and they'll just do a good job of it because they do a lot of that sort of stuff. They're probably as good as anybody in the world in doing that sort of thing at the moment. So, yeah, it'd be really good to have, like, as we said, Newcastle. It was the only reason that I sort of would consider ever going to Newcastle. I mean, it was like wasn't high on my list of places to go, but with a race there, and the track looks really good and all of the outlying areas look really good on the television. So yeah, I can just imagine, especially at that time of the year. The other thing is that if it is the opening round, that would put it fairly close, you imagine, to the Bathurst 12 hour. That's the other thing it does. It protects the Bathurst 12 hour, because if they'd have continued what they're going to do next year, which is open the supercar season at Mount Panorama, there's a real danger that the 12 hour could locally end up playing second fiddle to the supercars. So that separates that now. But if they play their cards right, you could have sort of 12 hours one week, Newcastle the next week. Well, then for people interstate like us, it'll be hey, let's go up to Bathurst and come back via Newcastle.
I think if you think this year's been a crazy year without any motorsport or sport in general, think about next year and how crazy it's going to be with everyone. You might as well be playing poker, blackjack, 500, I don't know, some sort of card game, because where all these cards fall next year for all these events, there's supercars they're switching around, all the different sports. You've got the two wheels, the motorcycle stuff. I've got some stuff on some World Superbikes and the MotoGP stuff later on while we're chatting on the show. But you've got Shannon's Motorsport Australia Championship, the 6 rounds there now. It's been announced. Phillip Island, Bathurst, Sydney, Old Moran Park, Sandown, and the Bend. So there's so many different, and everyone's changing around where they're going to go. So it's like going to be. Where do you go? It's gonna be all over the shop next year.
Yeah, we still don't know how all this is going to get out. Incidentally, must say hello to.
Oh, sorry. One more thing. Sorry, Brett. Newcastle. That's tipped to be a night race because of the lights again. 2022.
Well, that would be interesting as well. I imagine that could be one to. A hard sell for the locals, but anyway, I do. Mad Cow Mark is joining us. He suggested Stuart zoomologist. I quite like that, zoomologist.
Yeah, I'm actually just watching for Max Verstappen, and yeah, that tire went out in basically the moment he touched the brakes going into the corner, boom. But it looks like there was some contact earlier in the race. So maybe he got some of his own carbon fibre through it.
Yeah, something's obviously given it a mix. Mark's also saying supercar 24-hour at Bathurst, because we had the 24-hour years ago. We went up for the 24 hours. I think that was one of the big sort of motivations amongst anything is of getting over to Le Mans, because of the 24-hour. So who was that? Was with I went up with Richard and Tony Alloy. I think the three of us, and also I think Shane was up there too. So that was for the 20. So we did the 24-hour up there. That was fantastic. The 24-hour. I wouldn't be keen to see a supercar 24 hours. I mean, that would be as boring.
No, that'd be a bit boring.
But
sports cars and
to extend the 12-hour. Yeah, it's not going to happen. They've already ruled that out 1,000 times. But I mean, I just don't think they. The only thing I've got against the 12-hour at the moment is there's not enough night running. You know, they start in the first and that first sort of 20 minutes or so is incredibly spectacular, and and the 24-hour. I mean, sort of like to be up there on the top of the mountain at McPhillamy Park at 2 o'clock in the morning. Watching those cars, just snake around the track, all the lights.
With a glass of champagne in your hand.
A glass of something.
Think about it. If they started at 3 a.m., they could finish the 12-hour at 3 p.m., and that would be fabulous for everything that's going to happen after when it comes to barbecues and parties.
I've always suggested they should run it on the Saturday and start at 10 a.m. so that everybody can get a bit more of a sleep. And start it at 10 a.m., finish at 10 p.m. On Saturday night, have a big, have a band and a big party and a barbecue up the top of the hill or wherever, or at the back of the paddock, wherever they want to have the damn thing. Too. And then on Sunday, like years ago, remember when we went to Malala for the Victorian State Series, and that was on the Saturday, and we were all home. We were all home on by about 4 o'clock on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So
and by home he means driving back across 2 states.
Driving back. So
it was easy. But the other thing is they could get, like you said, set up for afternoon and evening events and what have you, and everybody camps out and heads home the next morning all refreshed. Or if they really wanted to, they could have the 12-hour on the Saturday and have some sort of sprint event on the Sunday.
Well, that'd be
the whole track for the weekend.
Speaking of sprint events, for people who are wondering, and I know our own Richard Outram was one of them. Challenge Bathurst is still going ahead. Challenge Bathurst a little bit later this month is apparently still on, and they are now taking what they announced today is if you're watching us in Melbourne or anywhere in Victoria for that matter,
or Queensland.
And if you get back across the border at Queensland, but if you're watching from New South Wales, if you're watching from Victoria or Tasmania, and you have a car that you want to enter at Challenge Bathurst, they are still accepting. They're still accepting entries. As of today, there was a late fee. They've dropped the late fee. They've now said now that the borders are open between Victoria and New South Wales, if you're in Victoria and you want to run Challenge Bathurst, I don't have the exact date on me at the moment, but it's later this month.
20 days, 10 hours, 31 minutes, 27 seconds.
Okay, so there it is. So yes, you just brought it up there. So if you want to, as I say, conquer the mountain, this is a great opportunity if you're in any of those sort of categories that normally don't get to run at Mount Panorama. And that's why I think Richard wants to do it, is just say take the Excel up there and say I raced at Mount Panorama, and I think anybody would like the opportunity to do that. So, and it's run by Yeehaw Event, James O'Brien and his team, who are really, really good. They were the ones who revived the 12-hour. They were the ones who revived and were running the 6-hour, the Easter event. This is now the only one they do now, the challenge up there now, the challenge Bathurst, and it's really, really good.
We're talking about Richard Outram, right?
Yes.
Why the XL, Richard? Why not get the damn Lotus clone finished and go race that at Bathurst? I will co-drive, I will turn spanners.
Well, I was going to say, you might need to turn a few spanners before the challenge to obviously get it out on the track. I think that might be the problem. So, and I think, he want to get in quick, because I think the last quota I think I saw this afternoon for it was around 300 entries. I'm not exactly sure what it's capped at, but now they've thrown it out and everyone knows about it, they'll probably be inundated, because as you said before, it's not just Victoria. There's waiving the fee for the Queensland entries as well, though, too. So you can be a late entry from Queensland or Victoria, or down south here in Victoria, Tas.
Do these have to be CAMS approved cars?
I would imagine. I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they will have to be cams. Cams. I'm pretty sure that it's a cams event or Motorsport Australia. So I would. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
think
but you wouldn't
so.
need something top end because there's both the super sprint and a regularity class. And a regularity is running to a specific time. If you're too fast for your car's safety, you get pinged.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's just a great opportunity for someone if you've got a track day car or something that you run at a club level to run up at Mount Panorama, and because you've got that, because
Who
you
was it that waved the camera on it? When we were watching it last year. I think they had like two cameras locked off, and as they were just starting from the line. I think one back towards. There was only a couple of cameras. I think they were doing live.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the situation is. Once again, in terms of live streaming, I believe that the first year, I believe Blendline TV did it. I'm not sure whether they do it again. They've got a whole new thing which we won't go into now. But I mean, basically, it's pay for play now. If you want to watch sort of live streaming or most live streaming on Blendline now, it's you've got to pay a subscription. So it's not a huge. I think it's about $10 a month or something like that. So. It's not a huge amount, but once again, one thing I said, somebody said, "Oh, why doesn't In Pit Lane do that? You should do that." We will never charge you to watch anything we do. That's I'm just philosophically opposed to pay for play, quite frankly. So especially at the level we want to get stuff out to as many people as humanly possible, and. Yeah, I think that there is more than enough money going around. It's just a way of sort of rich people passing on, once again passing on the cost to people who don't have as much money. I mean, if you're running a Ferrari or a Porsche or something at Challenge Bathurst or anywhere else, you can probably afford to sling in an extra $15 or $20 to have a live stream. So, but not for the people who want to watch it. It's like if you want to pay for it, yeah, good luck to you. But we're not going to ask you to pay for anything. We want to make it as open as possible. That's why we fight for community television, because
Absolutely.
we go on them. The last figures I
Yep.
saw, we still had around 20,000 people watching us every week on Channel 31 in Melbourne, and about 10,000 watching us on Channel 44 in Adelaide. And yeah, those people, a lot of those people, the feedback we get is they wouldn't be watching. They do not watch stuff like this. They do not watch YouTube. They don't watch anything online. So
Something that we could all watch is that the World Endurance Championship. I think the last Toyota race. I think it's called something else, but it's all about the Toyotas. Really, there's only two cars. I think.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a bit of
Bahrain.
What's that?
Bahrain is their last last jaunt.
Bahrain is the last, and this will be there, and they'll also be. The main interest will be the debut of the car they're going to run next year, the hypercar. They're going to show off. We've seen sort of road going versions and concept versions. This will be the actual race car that they'll be bringing out and showing people. So we'll get a more of an idea of what the hypercars are going to look like for next year. We've seen some stuff from Glickenhaus with their car that looks really, really nice. So if they look as good as the Glickenhaus looks, and also we've seen some artist impressions from By Collis and also artist impressions from Peugeot, but I don't think the Peugeot is going to look anything at all like the artist's impression. If you have a look at it, there's lots of sharp corners on it and lots of stuff that looks really, really good on a render and a video game. But actually, going down Mulsanne straight at 300 kilometers, 350 kilometers per hour is probably not as brilliant.
You can't airbrush a car at 300 kilometers an hour, can you?
Be interesting to sort of go with the flow viz and all the rest of it. I've forgotten the name. We went to Richard and I went to I think before Formula SAE last year with William Tote, the aerodynamicist out at Monash University, and he actually during the conversation gave the recipe to make your own flow viz. And I thought, oh, that'd be interesting, and I forgot it completely. I must try and get in touch with Willem and find out, get that recipe again, because that would be so cool. I mean, if you had like particularly something like a sports sedan or something like that, and you wanted to see, exactly where what all the air was doing and where it was going, this was a very affordable way of just painted on wet to the front of your car and sending it out for 3 or 4 laps and coming back and having a look at it.
It'd be cool,
Oh,
especially if it's in a fluoro colour.
Exactly.
So a wind tunnel and Schlieren photography is beyond it.
Yeah,
Blur
well,
photography?
yeah.
Well,
Blur-
if you want to put it out in the park and give it the real McCoy rather than just sitting in a wind tunnel and just blowing air at it, you're going out there and you're using all the different variants that are in nature. And if you put some fluoro on it, you can still put a GoPro or some sort of camera on it and get some good footage of it as it disperses well too. Anyway, that'd be something that you'd be very good at, I think, Stuart.
Yeah, but you'd have to put the GoPro downstream of the airflow, so it'd have to look in the direction the car's traveling. Otherwise, it would interfere with the airflow over the body of the car.
Correct. I'm sure you have all the physics already worked out in an instant. But I'm saying that that'd be something right up your alley to be able to work out the challenges of getting
I would do it with the Schlieren
footage.
photography, but that's just me. Because there would be an excuse to have a high-speed camera and a mirror and a laser.
Speaking of, see, he's thinking out loud already. There goes our famous live stream expert. Speaking of airflow as well, and quicker than the cars, just on the two wheels, there's been a fair bit of news out this week. I won't hit the hard-hitting headline first, but just a bit of gossip from Ducati, and this is in World Superbikes. Chaz Davies and Ducati have decided to part ways in the way that Ducati seems to do things quite regularly with things. I think Dovizioso's probably Dov's in the same situation with MotoGP at the moment. He doesn't know what he's doing. They don't know what he's doing, and no one's talking to each other. Well, Chaz Davies, after 9 years of World Superbikes, are parting ways, and they're not answering his phone calls, even though he's only just finished racing with them in the last few days. So he's not looking, and because it's such an end to the relationship so quickly and towards the end of the season. And this is what everyone always says about the merry-go-round. Why are people talking halfway through a season or even at the start of a season about who they're riding for next year? Chaz has actually been left without a factory ride for next year now, and he's still quite a good competitor because he won the last race for Ducati in the World Superbike. So he's a little bit disgruntled at the moment and doesn't know where he stands. Moving on to the premier prototype class, MotoGP itself in the world, the doctor himself has tested positive to COVID-19 again. So he will not be racing this weekend. The doctor, Valentino Rossi, so he's still got the lingering effects of it. So heard he's well, but I think it's Garrett Gertloff is stepping in, who's the Yamaha test driver for the time being. They've got him on standby, which is basically a golden ticket. You're going to be riding Valentino's bike, probably not the way he can, but we'll set it up as best we can for you, which also means Jorge Lorenzo is, on the gossip side of things, will probably not be the Yamaha test rider for next year because he's been talking to Aprilia on the side, and usually the test rider maybe get first dibs on riding the MotoGP bike if they can, if someone is out through injury in most of the time in cases like this. So the Garrett's going to be grabbing the bike instead. Also, lastly, the World Superbikes will be later on next year instead of early in February down at Phillip Island, which is pretty big here in Australia. I think we touched on that a couple of weeks ago. They're swapping over the MotoGP and the World Superbikes over to later on the year. And yeah, I think that's
So how many
pretty much
rounds?
a
How many
wrap.
rounds have they got of the MotoGP left this year? Do you know?
They've finished up now. I think they got through seven or nine. I think it was 7 or 9. So yeah, and they're finished up. Oh no, for the MotoGP. Sorry, the World Superbikes have had 7 or 9. MotoGP, it's only a couple left. Yeah, I think it might be 1, maybe 2. So, but there is a little bit of a whisper going on in World Superbikes as well, though, too. And I don't know if MotoGP, because they usually take the lead on some of this, if someone's being innovative, with the 2022 calendar for World Superbikes, they're going to add 2 or 3 new circuits, and they're not going to be the European ones. They're going to be around Asia. So they'll be trying to tie them in with MotoGP or World Superbike. So yeah, keep an eye out. There's going to be maybe some extra things going on.
MotoGP is far bigger than Formula One in Asia. I mean, like Malaysia, the Formula One, they always struggle to get a crowd there. They get, MotoGP at Malaysia gets a massive crowd. Everybody that I spoke to over there was all saying, "Yeah, well, look, we like Formula One. We enjoyed the Super GT coming over here and the Asian Le Mans and all that sort of thing. But it's bikes drive motorsport big time in places like Malaysia, Indonesia, and all those sort of places." So
Hero Honda sponsors the hell out of everything over there, and they get around in their little postie bikes and mopeds left, right, and center, and think they can all ride like Valentino. Yeah. What was that? A full moon there, Stuart?
That was Schlerin photography of a baseball moving at supersonic speed.
Oh yes, I've seen that stuff on. Seeing that stuff on YouTube, it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, smarter every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So how do we do that with a race car on a track?
Is the
I
race
want
car
to now.
Well, you do it in the same way. I'm just wondering whether the race car is going to be so large. I think we won't get into the physics of it, but it's interesting to see as to why they do it. I think something what I'd like to see, where I'd like to see that used, if you could scale it up to that level, would be at the top end of a drag strip with a top fuel dragster, and see just what the hell all the shock waves and everything are doing off that thing flying.
Well, it can be scaled up. There is a laboratory in the US that's basically a railway track with a giant concrete and steel reinforced block at the end of it, and they use a rocket-powered sled down the track. And they use this sort of photography to look at the air coming off the sled. And it's used for tests of starting hypersonic engines. And doing crash tests at supersonic speeds.
Yeah, which is
one of the best pieces of footage is a F4 Phantom being run into a simulation of the cooling tower at a nuclear power plant and showing how the concrete survives and the Phantom jet doesn't.
Yeah. Did Volvo have any part of ownership of it as well too? Volvo were famous for their ads back in the day.
Yeah, it'd be in their sort of way of doing things, wouldn't it?
Yeah, crash test dummies. They used to everything.
I used to do that sort of stuff for a living.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Crash test dummy is in a Volvo and into a concrete wall, Chris.
Tanks and rockets and artillery.
Okay, you're just getting run over by a car behind you right now, and your screen. Just be careful there; that thing doesn't start up and drive over the top of your head. But
no, it's a Chev. It's not reliable enough to start up without warning. It is reliable enough to fall into gear without warning and do backwards donuts with nobody on board.
Yeah, so you were doing all that sort of stuff at Woomera, wasn't it, Chris?
Woomera and Montagita, next to that house you looked at last week.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
Give us your favourite story, Chris.
Machine gun bullet coming out of the barrel of a gun. The barrel failed and the bullet tumbled, went all the way down to the back of the firing range, ricocheted and came back and hit me in the legs.
Hit you in the legs?
Yes. It didn't have enough energy to do any harm by the time it got back.
Bet you it scared the bejesus out of you, though.
It did that.
Jesus, did you have a nice stiff drink that night? Maybe something from the Dan and Andrews top shelf?
The top shelf?
Jeez. Something that didn't happen to you, but people survived. Give us a good luck story as well, too. What else?
Oh, down there? No, not too many dangerous
Misfires?
incidents, because we take steps before we start things like that to ensure that it can't happen.
No near misses, close ones?
No. The only near miss I've ever had was I was almost a passenger on Air New Zealand's Flight 901 back in 1979.
Did you get caught in the landing gear again?
No. Just the underpants. Yeah.
The underpants got caught in the landing gear.
Yeah, speaking of you mentioned Woomera in there, Chris.
Hang on, hang on a second.
High-speed shenanigans, Woomera has been reopened.
Wait a minute.
There's
If he had his
a
underpants
company
caught in the
doing
gear,
tests
what
out
were you doing with your pants off?
Oh, we won't go there.
Maybe he was an extra in a
Flight
Sky.
901
maybe he was an
the,
extra in a Skyhooks music video.
Air New Zealand flight that
Yeah.
flew to Mount Erebus.
Oh, gee.
Telling
Yeah, so
everybody
how
about it.
did you end up with that?
I was in New Zealand at the time, and they were offering tickets at the airport, so I went to buy one. I didn't have enough money, so I went off to get my mum at the time to transfer me or telegraph me cash. And I got the cash, and I went back to the ticket office, and they said, "Oh, sorry, Chris, we've just sold the last ticket. You missed out."
Ooh, talk about
Yeah.
dodging a bullet.
And as I flew back to Melbourne, Flight 901 flew into Mount Erebus in Antarctica.
Yeah, that's my dad had the same thing. He was doing he used to work for the State Electricity Commission, and they were doing some reconnaissance on looking for some problems on on power lines, and they hired a helicopter to basically fly the complete length from your lawn right through to the main substations down at Rover where we lived. That's why we were living down there. So, and he was going up to do that, and the car broke down on the way to go to Moorabbin to jump on the helicopter. And of course, no mobile phones. He was just starting. So in the end, they went, "Oh, yeah, Charlie's not coming, so we'll just have to go without him." And the thing crashed, and everyone on board was killed. So yeah, it's amazing how close you can come sometimes.
Yes.
That's a Buddy Holly story, one of those ones, and Chubby Checker, etc. When you make the plane or you don't, or you flip a coin in the rain like they did.
Incidentally, before we go
Back to motorsport.
Yeah, before we go any further, Richard Catchlove joining us again. G'day, Richard. Good to see you again. Hope everything's going well. But in terms of motorsport, well, as I said, I think have we got anything more? I mean, it's. I don't know whether it's just me at the moment, but it just seems to be that there's lots of talk of who might go where and who might do what, but there's nothing really hard.
Oh, there's absurd things going on, like Lewis Hamilton's going to retire at the end of the year, and what would the field look like if he wasn't doing it, and so forth. Everyone's just coming up with hypotheticals.
I actually think if Toto does move to another position, I think that's quite plausible that Lewis might retire or leave Mercedes anyway.
Really?
Yeah, because if you look at it, Michael Schumacher, he had the team built around him, and he had Ross Brawn and all them sort of around him, and I think Lewis is in the same situation with Toto Wolff. He's got sort of him around him as well as the others. So I think
you'd have to give it one more year, Peter, because the Toto's there, or whether you've got the Tin Man, or you've got the Lion without the heart, or you've got anyone without anyone out of fairy tales, he will stay on at least another year because he has got records he still wants to break. He's that close to eclipsing.
Now that he's passed Michael Schumacher's record, I think he wants to put that record out of reach of anyone else.
He needs one more title. He needs a few more other records, like he's this many races or this many wins here or so forth. I'm sure he's got a little bucket list in his own head. And whether Toto Wolff's running the show, or whether Brett Ramsey's running the show over there in Formula One, Stewart could be sidekick, doesn't matter. He needs to be in that car to break those records.
The other thing is it's like 92 victories, a retirement with 100 wins. It's this nice round number, isn't it? And he's got to get there first.
Yep.
He's coming up to a couple more records. I'm just wondering, in terms of in terms of number of world championships held and all the rest of it, whether he'll do a Mark Taylor. I mean, if cricket fans out there will remember when Mark Taylor got to the same score, the same record-breaking score that Don Bradman when only needed one and retired. He just walked straight off. He said, "No, I don't want to beat the legend. I'm happy to join him, but it's not for me to beat the legend. And he just walked away. I'm just wondering whether
Nah.
like Lewis has got something in mind to say, like, no, I'll get to a certain point and I'll equal Michael on that, and I'll equal, and then I'll walk away from it, because he doesn't need the money anymore. And he can certainly find lots of other things to do.
Or maybe he's waiting for enough dollars from NASCAR or something like that.
And I don't think, Michael Schumacher
Have
doesn't
the redneck retirement.
to honour his memory by not winning races.
No, I think Lewis has got that different personality. I could see him doing it if he had ticked in. If he have his own little mental list, I think, of like, I want to beat this record, I want to beat that record. You can tell by his personality, he wants to beat. He's extremely. Yep. He's more competitive than some of the other guys that race. He's less content at this stage in life he is, whereas there are other guys out there like Fernando Alonso. He'll come back to the sport next year and he'll be very extremely media savvy, down to earth, give back, cool as a cucumber, not as cool as of course Kimmy, but he will be but on the track he will give 110%, give it his all and be fresh. But Lewis, no, he's got that nature where I don't care, F you, I'm going to beat you no matter what.
Yeah.
At all cost.
Now,
what records does he have left to break?
They went through a list of them the other day. There were a few coming up, and that's what made me think about it at the time. There was, in terms of championships, one, and there was a whole. There was quite a few that were coming up, but they were all sort of like really close within reach. Interesting is like as Mark is saying again, is Lewis a better driver than Michael was? And it's always so hard to compare.
Yeah.
I would say yes on that, because I think Michael Schumacher wasn't the best driver, but he was the best champion. What he did for the sport as a whole is far more important than what he did behind the wheel.
Yeah.
What was that comment that just come up, Brett? I just saw someone, Lewis wouldn't go to NASCAR because he couldn't draft. I missed the rest of it after that. You got that one up there?
Yeah, that's harsh.
Yeah, but PVDA 64 was saying that Hamilton wouldn't go to NASCAR, couldn't handle drafting and racing close to other cars. Look how often he complains when he's not in front about how.
Well, in that case, he's not alone in Formula One. Vettel would be even worse at that.
Oh, Vettel would be terrible. There's always been. I know on
Max wouldn't be that good either.
I know on
Max has got a history already. You're right there, Stuart. He's next up on the rung on the ladder to see how he handles not being in front.
Because I think that's one of the things with Vettel. I mean, midweek motorsport, Nick Damon has said for 6 or 7 years that Vettel was very much a front runner, and the moment he had to battle through, and that was the argument that has been used about Hamilton as well, is the fact that the way to beat Hamilton is the way that Nico Rosberg beat him. Just put constant pressure on him, and he'll have a few goes, and if you don't sort of just move aside for him, he'll go, no, my car's not working, it's all too hard, it's not working today, and he just sort of, he'll turn off, and he won't sort of, he's not a Daniel Ricciardo, he's not a
Fernando Alonso. I'll tell you what though, Vettel has got bloody record for two things though. One, as you're saying, sooking and throwing the towel. The other one is two, and I don't know who else is worse out there than Vettel at the moment. It has done for about 3 years, and this is even when he was back at Red Bull. I just don't understand why he does it. If he doesn't like it, he will throw his car across 3 other people's cars and wreck millions of dollars worth of bloody stuff. So he not only just throws the towel, he's willing to throw his car at everybody else at everyone else's expense. Let's see if Lewis does that.
Yeah, well, I don't think Lewis would, but just looking up the records, there's a record shared with Jacques Villeneuve, a record shared with, 4 shared with Michael, one with Senna and Ascari, Mansell and Clark. He'd want to break those 6. He'd want his name to be there beyond everyone else.
What was Senna's one? Because Senna would have been fairly young. Lewis is getting on a bit.
Senna is point number 4. I think it's the most poles at one track. I think. Yep, there we go. Most pole positions at the same Grand Prix for the Australian Grand Prix.
Well, there you go. And what Senna would have been very young at that age compared to Hamilton. Now that's still not to break it as well.
Well, Hamilton's still fairly young. I mean, people forget how young he was. I mean, I remember his first. I've got vivid memories of Hamilton's first victory because we were it was the same weekend as the first Le Mans that we went to, and because what happened was the Le Mans finished and it was still running to 4 o'clock in those days. So 4 o'clock Le Mans finished, and then everybody hung around in the media centre to watch the Canadian Grand Prix because it was on, I think, at about 7 o'clock French time. So we all hung around in the media centre in front of all the monitors because there's just monitors everywhere in the media centre at Le Mans, and so we all sat around and watched the Canadian Grand Prix and watched Lewis's. The next day in France, you wouldn't have known the Le Mans race was on. It was literally front page news in every newspaper in France. Was Lewis Hamilton winning that race? And the thing, the worrying thing about, or not so much worrying, but the significant thing about it was that even though sort of my French is less than basic, you could see that the headlines on every single paper and in every single news story on the thing was a black man has won a Formula One race. That was just because the front page of the newspaper was sort of Le Grand Prix Le Negro wins Formula One, right? So it was huge news. I mean, it was just he was young, he was a black guy, he was just and he just came from nowhere. And he swept in, and it was like this tidal wave. And we literally bought the paper. I probably still got it here somewhere, but we bought the paper back, and it was like the first 3 pages of sports were all Lewis Hamilton, a bit of soccer, local soccer, and then Le Mans was sort of like a bit about that big in the. It was like, oh, by the way, Audi won at Le Mans again.
Okay, I'll throw this one at the group. This is what we're here for
That's
open
like
discussion.
Derek for the English guy versus the German team.
Well.
And you are in France.
Throw this one out there at everybody. Whether Lewis is still racing or not, whether he's still at Mercedes like that, just throw this one out there. Who's going to be the next world champion in Formula One after Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah, it's a good call. That's a good question, that one.
So the room went quiet there for a second. Will it be Max at Red Bull? Will it be someone else at another team? Will it be who's going to be the next world champion?
Conventional wisdom would say Max. I mean, conventional wisdom you'd say, but in terms of you don't know, it depends on how far down the track you go. In terms of assuming that he's going to be that Hamilton's going to be a red hot favourite for next year as well. Then we've got the new regulations, and then it will that could make things interesting. But by the time Lewis either moves aside or or Mercedes ends up having a Ferrari moment or something,
or someone has a competitive car that's up there with them. Who's going to be the next world champion after Lewis?
Well, being an FCA driver, I'm going to say a Alfa or a Ferrari driver.
Got to give us a name.
Well, I would say Leclerc is a good chance.
Yeah. But that's the question again. It's a $64 question. All these teams are so up and down each year, other than Merck being so consistent for so many years now. Will Leclerc have a competitive car when his boss, as I said, we in a Full Course Yellow show a few weeks ago, saying, "Oh, we're not going to be competitive until at least 2023."
And that's when the new regulations come in. So that's quite possible.
A lot could happen between now and then, and a lot of competitive. Yeah, I mean, Haas, anyone, Racing Point, you name it.
Just putting on the JV5 E7 as saying Dan Ricciardo. I'd love to see it. He would certainly be what Formula One needs. I think Dan Ricciardo becoming world champion would be, apart from what it would do for the sport in Australia, it would be huge. But I just think Dan's so popular with everybody. it'd be like it'd be like just putting on a new suit and just going.
Chewy's everywhere.
Wow, yeah, sure. He's a fun. He's a fun guy.
Yeah.
Well, Lewis got into it last podiem last weekend. Lewis had a shoey with him, but Valtteri didn't.
Yeah, I was just about to say he actually made Lewis relax. Lewis actually asked him, "Can I have one?" Because apparently, one time before then, Daniel offered him a shoey, and Lewis said, "No." This time, Lewis said, "Can I have one?"
But once again, this is
join
Lewis.
in, yeah.
This is Lewis being very smart in terms of his brand and his marketing. In terms of because yes, he did he was offered the shoey the first time around and knocked it back, and then got sort of heaps of shit on social media from people going, you snob, you didn't have a shoey with Danny Rick, and it was like, and I'm sure that either he or his marketing people looked at it and said, hey, listen, next time that happens, I know it's.
Well, that was a couple of weeks ago too.
Yeah.
Remember, Daniel reacted to a situation, and Lewis reacted to the situation, and Daniel's comments were applauded by the world, especially the motorsport world, and Lewis was vilified for about the same sort of comments, about the same sort of situation. So maybe he has had someone who he respects enough, or who understands enough, that he's had a tap on the shoulder. Lewis, you need to come back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah,
Now, if you want to reinvigorate the sport here, putting Dan in a red car would actually do more for raising the profile.
Oh yeah, I'd have loved. I had my fingers crossed. I thought, it's probably the way the car's running at the moment. It's like, thank God it didn't happen. But it may not last forever. That, but just the romance. Daniel Ricciardo, the Italian Australian family in a Ferrari. Imagine lying on the street if you ever came. Australian Grand Prix in a Ferrari. Lying on the street, the party would go on for weeks.
How many Ferraris would be in Lygon Street?
Ferrari from the track to Lygon Street.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. It's like we're taking this car. It's going straight to Lygon Street, and the party starts. I mean, they party in Lygon Street. If you ever come for the Grand Prix in Melbourne, and you want to know where all the Ferrari people hang out, including a lot of the team, the place is Lygon Street, Carlton. That's the Italian centre of Melbourne, and that's where they will all be. So if you're from interstate or overseas, and you're wondering, if I go to, if you can get into Australia, I mean,
I was going to say, we'll make a booking early for Lygon Street at the restaurant, and if you get a phone call, I'm sorry, we're now booked out, you can say, I know who's got my spot. Tell them they're going to pay me $2,000 to get my table.
Yeah, well, someone's saying, JV5V7 is saying here, possibly in a McLaren with a Mercedes engine, if it all falls together. I mean, we've seen already the McLaren currently has a pretty good chassis. We've seen how well Sainz is driving it at the moment. You would assume that the Mercedes engine is going to be better than what they've got now. So whether that lifts him, is a McLaren Mercedes going to be as good as a Mercedes where they build everything? It's like computers. It's like Apple build everything just for the components built just for that particular computer and just for that particular software, and it runs better because of that. And it's the same with Formula One.
Until they upgrade the software and destroy everything.
Well, I mean, it's the same.
Just an unqualified.
That could happen to Mercedes. I mean, we don't know when the new regulations come around. Somebody could get it wrong. I mean, even Red Bull could get it wrong. We might find somebody like Haas or Alfa Romeo or somebody like that could turn around, or even Williams could find the sweet spot with the new regulations, and suddenly it's like, wow, that changed everything.
Ross
like
Brawn
what Braun
did it years
did.
ago.
They came out of nowhere. Yeah, exactly.
Ross Brawn and Jenson Button did it a few years ago, and they came a completely obscure season where they came from almost the back of the grid and came up and won a championship. And the other thing is, you said any team can do it, but just an unqualified tip for the things: just stay away from Kimmy on the track because he will run into you and you won't get anywhere. You won't finish the race. I'm talking about. It's not Kimmy. Stay away from Sebastian Vettel. He will run into you. Keep away from him, and you got a chance at the championship.
I'm going to be interested to see how long Vettel's going to last at Aston Martin for Racing Point or whatever they're calling themselves this week, because I just don't think he's going to be the sort of person who's going to be able to hang around and just and just fill in. He's struggling already. I think he's really keeping his fingers crossed that Aston Martin, and that's the other thing you've got to remember is Racing Point are competitive this year. They're going to be rebranded as Aston Martin next year, and guess who just bought a huge slab of Aston Martin shares? Mercedes.
The plot thickens.
And I think Sebastian will find it hard to swallow with Lawrence Stroll owning the team and Lance Stroll sort of being there, because Lance Stroll's fairly secure. So I think Sebastian will, I think Sebastian will find that hard.
He's going to find a lot of things hard. Maybe he should just go NASCAR and draft.
I think Formula One guys in NASCAR are sort of, they're not going to. Well, I mean, there's always IndyCar. There's always the World. This is the thing. We don't know what's going to happen with the World Endurance Championship. We know we have Toyota, and then we've got sort of the smaller things in Glickenhaus and Bicolis for in the first year. But we're also getting for next year a grandfathered LMP1 car from Renault as Alpine, and then we've also got coming up the following year for the 100th anniversary of Le Mans is Peugeot will be back. So. And then you've got all the DPIs in America, which are going to be eligible to run at Le Mans, which could include Cadillac, Acura, Honda, and also, if they decide to stay around, Mazda. So you could have, that's eight different manufacturers in the top category at Le Mans. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities there for somebody to get involved. So. Yeah. Anyway, let's see how that goes. But look, I think that we've just about wrapped that up now. They're getting very tired. I didn't stay up all night like Stuart, but I also got up at 7 o'clock this morning.
He's probably got more sleep than you as well too.
Well, if he's probably lucky enough to be able to sleep in the daytime. It doesn't matter how tired I am. I can't sleep in the daytime. Not for any period of time. It's terrible. Yeah, as Mark's pointing out again, Jenson Button beat Hamilton for the championship. Both. Then, so
I'm sure Jenson's always.
I think that the secret, and most people know this, the secret to beating Hamilton is to put pressure on him, and he clearly doesn't respond all that well to pressure, whether it's coming on the track or off the track.
Well, Nico knows how to do that as well.
Nico did it, and it would be interesting at the moment. That's why I think he'd be very relieved that they re-signed Bottas again. Bottas has that sort of Rubens Barrichello sort of
number two.
Where he's I know my role. I'm not I'm number two to the greatest in the world. I don't I'm more than happy with that. Thank you very much, Mercedes.
He gets a little bit agitated sometimes.
Occasionally he rocks the boat.
I reckon he's got a little bit more of a shorter fuse than Ruben's got. I think Stuart and Peter look like they're agreeing with me on this, but I think he does fall into line at the end of the day, thinking, "Oh yeah, I get paid a few mil more than the rest of the other drivers in the comp, I suppose." But I'm still going to say something. I do not agree with this. I just want to put it on record. I do not agree. Now, let's move on.
Thank you. Good on you, Valtteri. Good on you. Okay, you run along now. Go count your money.
Yeah, I don't agree, but I will run along.
Yes. Anyway, let's call it there, guys. It's getting on in nice. So let's sort of round up from everybody. Pete, what do you want to leave us with tonight?
This is not a Grand Prix until for another fortnight, so not much happening for the
So
next.
where is the next one?
Turkey, I think.
Turkey.
Well,
Yeah.
that could be interesting
If,
for a number of reasons because of all of the tension at the moment between Turkey and France.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be, that could be interesting. But anyway, let's yeah. So that's a couple of weeks, and as we said, we've got stuff coming up over the weekend, and yeah, as I said, local stuff. Not this weekend, but the week after the postponed August access meeting down at Phillip Island is happening. Don't think that we have a way of getting spectators there yet, but they are talking about for the Sandown race because they've got a grandstand there that they might be able to work something out. So there's there, but I don't know. I'd like to talk to them. The MG Car Club are running one of the weekends. I'm not sure also in terms of what access we have to any of the Shannon stuff now, any of the ARG things as a result of the television deal with Channel 7, because the deal they had with 10, they were sort of paying for it, and it was like, yeah, as long as we don't show the races, we can still have access and do stories and pick up footage and some B-roll and that sort of stuff. I don't know whether that's going to be the case anymore now that there was 7, so we'll have to find out. But if there's a chance of getting to any of these things, we will try and get there, because it's been a long time since we've actually stood by a racetrack and got the smell of rubber in our nostrils and got the backs of our necks sunburnt and had people yell at us for standing in the wrong places.
Just going to throw this one out there just for the fun of it on that subject. We could bring in probably our 12-year-old nephew, and they'd probably know more about motorsport than some of the commentators on Channel 7 that have actually been contracted.
Harsh,
Holy,
Who said
fair.
that?
Anyway, that's just some of the feedback I've got lately. But
Written, spoken, and authorised by Doc.
Yep.
I didn't say all of them. I just said a couple.
Let's just face it, none of them there in TV land have ever had the nose hairs peeled off the inside of their nose with the smell of racing fuel the first thing in the morning. Whereas we,
stand next to a
nitro
metre
car
away from a top fuel dragster as it leaves them. Then you know you've lived.
Love the smell of oil in the morning.
Yeah, let's keep.
I was going to go with love the smell of nitromethane in the morning, but yeah,
I was keeping it drug free.
Yeah,
there's no drugs there.
We'll
besides adrenaline.
Chris, you got any plan? What, are you watching anything or doing anything, or are you gentlemen of leisure as you are now these days?
I am at the moment, yeah.
I think we all are right now. I sort of realised today. It's hard to get motivated again. And I thought, well, this is why some people go into decline in retirement, because it's like, I could not be bothered doing anything today. Am I going to put clothes on? Do I need to put clothes? No, I don't need to.
Thank God. Thanks for putting that T-shirt on, Brett. I don't care what you've got below the camera line, but we really do appreciate it.
That's all. All at the moment is a Megadeth T-shirt and some bandages. That's all.
I'm glad you. Thanks for not doing a Mick Malloy moment where you show your bottom half down. There's just a Y front there.
Yeah, at least there was a Y front.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I got there. So, Doc, you're working away, are you? And
working away. I do have some motorsport news in my own backyard. I picked up a really cheap set of XR6 wheels last weekend, close by, and fitted those.
Was that from Mick Webb?
No. Oh yes. Sorry. Late breaking news. Thank you for that. I'm sorry. How long are we going for? We got 2 minutes. I did pick up some XR6 wheels, and so I formally forgot I did sell my SVO wheels. So congratulations to a gentleman in Macedon now who owns a magnificent set of SVOs that he only needed that one more piece in the puzzle to fix up and restore his car. So congratulations. He now has a fully legit factory spec SVO again. Picked up some XR6 ones for myself to retrofit them to my factory spec ute. So I'm wrapped to do that. And Mick Webb happened to be on the way. So I called into the race shop over there in Ringwood, and poor guy, he was rebuilding an engine at the time and couldn't stop talking and kept telling me stories and having a chat. But then says, I'm going to get back to work again. Anyway, I remember the time when I was, and then he gets a little bit sidetracked. So about probably 45 minutes later, stay tuned sometime in the next few months when we can get out of this thing properly and do some real TV again. Mick would love to have a chat with In Pit Lane and sit down with a beverage, preferably cold and golden. And Stuart's going to thumbs up. He might want to come across because he has not just Fords, he has a lot of stuff around his workshop, which is absolutely amazing to see. So good to catch up with Mick. He will be seeing us soon.
We've got a couple of things planned in terms of, you know, in terms of the show. I mean, we don't know what the situation is in terms of getting back into the studio. We have no idea what the situation is with that, and it certainly won't be happening this year. But yeah, once it's safe, once we get the freedom to be able to move around a bit, there's a few things we got planned already to have a look at a few new cars that are being built, to talk to people like Mick, and I've got a few people lined up myself. So there will be, apart from this, is, as we said, this is just something we're doing when we're not doing the show, and it's a bit of fun on Thursday night. But this isn't the show. If you're watching now and saying, "Oh, that's the show," no, this isn't the show. There isn't the show. You can watch that. You can go back and look at old shows on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. But we will get out and we'll get into as many workshops as we can get into reasonably over the course of the next.
Well, Stuart's got some amazing ideas. You and I have got a shopping list of people we want to do and see and everything like that. So, you know, if you think In Pit Lane's in hibernation, wait till we get out and about and running amok next year.
Well, I don't know how amok we're going to run. I think my days of running amok are well and truly gone. I mean, you know, I can probably crawl or stagger or shuffle amok.
I'll push your little trolley along with you.
That's quite possible at my age. I'm an old man now. I mean, yeah.
This is coming. Actually, I'm going to butt in here. This is from Brett, who last time, this is only in March this year, we went down the Sandown for the last time to see some great motorsport. Only this year. And we got to the second day down there and we had Richard with us, and Richard said, I'll do camera all day. And this is from Brett, mind you. Doc, you go and get all these interviews. I'm going to go saunter around the track for a few hours. So, you know, he doesn't actually just roll around, ladies and gentlemen that are In Pit Lane fans. He gets out there in the thick of things and he gets the footage. He does the hard yards on the races. So, no.
I find nice, quiet spots where I can stand with the camera for a while, get some really good shots, and sit there and have some olives and a few nibblies and perhaps a drink of something that I shouldn't be allowed to have at the time. But
you
anyway,
do very well at it. You do extremely well at it. So yes, don't degrade yourself too much. Brett gets it amongst the other thing all the time.
The other thing that we need to point out is, hopefully we will have action, talking about the Top Fuel Drags, and hopefully we will have some live stream action from both Calder Park and Adelaide International Raceway. I know they're sort of working as how they're going to make that happen. And once the borders are sort of a bit more flexible and things can run again, and they sort out a few ongoing problems, just finish off a few things here and there, we'll be back to racing at both Calder Park and Adelaide International Raceway.
Oh, one more bit of gossip. Council elections were just finished up here around the state in Victoria,
yes.
As you know. On that note, Graham Moore and Brett Owen were both re-elected in the city of Cardinia, out here in the Shire of Cardinia, and they are huge fans of getting the motorsport complex up and running out this way too.
So that's another thing we've got to do, is we've got to try and track down the people from Podium One and find out exactly what the state of play with that is at the moment as well. So that's something we've got. So we've got plenty of things to cover. Once we get out and about and we can start doing things again, yes, we will start doing things again to the best of our ability. Okay, and that includes live streaming Dragons. And if you're watching, if you've got anything to do with local speedway or anything like that, or local kart racing, and you would like us to turn up and cover some of your footage, and that includes putting it onto Channel 31 as well. I mean, if we get enough interest, we could certainly run a summer series like we did last year. We had karts from Oakley. We had racing from Nyora. We had some international stuff. We had some feature interviews and some workshop stuff. We could certainly do that again. It's just obviously, I mean, there is some cost involved. We've got to get people out to these places, and I mean, it's not going to cost a fortune, but we can't. We need a bit of petrol money and a few fun tickets. So if you're interested at all, get in touch with us here at In Pit Lane. The show at In Pit Lane is the way to go. What have we done right now?
Someone just made a comment about Stuart.
It's not Leeds. Yes, he did. Yes, needs the. Actually, I'm in the same boat because I tried to cut my own hair the other day, and it was a bit of a disaster. And so I went to get it done today, and I went back to my regular hairdresser in Springvale. And as soon as I sat down, and she looked at me, she went, "Oh, you'll go very bald very quickly." Yeah, thanks a lot.
I was just grateful to be able to get my motorcycle.
17.
I was just grateful to get my
motorbike. Everyone
motorbike
said
coming
I'd be bald at like 20. They said, you'll be bald at 20. And it stayed at this length for the whole time since. But it's going to go soon. It's going to go, and that doesn't matter. I mean, it's hair.
I was just wrapped to get the motorbike helmet back on this week.
Yeah, what, you've been robbing banks again?
Yeah, with the tinted visor.
Takes the fun out of it now. You go into the bank now, and everybody's got a mask on. It's now you panic if people come in and they're not wearing a mask. So anyway, let's get out of here. We're doing this again. We're chatting on, and we need to go. And
there's a civil war in the USA. We've got to go and watch as well too. They're all going to start killing each other soon.
Yeah. Now this is going to be fun.
On that note, Doc, does anyone remember the I'll change your clocks, change your smoke alarm battery?
We do.
Yeah.
Stuart, yeah.
And then the meme became change your clocks, change your prime minister. Does everyone realize they just changed their clocks in the US?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it's going to be change your clock, change your president, and clean your gun barrels because you're going to need it.
Yeah,
and change your grand jury. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and lock lock your doors, load up on guns, bring your friends, keep your heads down. To all the people over there in the States who might be watching, and there's a few friends of ours who are over there, just look after yourselves and just don't do anything silly. It's not worth it. Hey, listen, we're going to get out of here now because I finally got control. For some reason, I lost control of my mouse for a second, and so I couldn't press the end stream button, but I will press
mouse.
So until we see you next week on Full Course Yellow, 9:00 Melbourne time, and whatever time that is, wherever you're watching. And as I said, if you want to come on the panel and join us and join in on this mindless chat, you're more than welcome to. Just go to the Zoom link or the Jot form, ask for an invitation, and we'll send you a link to the Zoom so you can get into the meeting and join us and actually talk to us here at the moment. Okay, we'll catch you next week. So until then, from all of us here, it's bye for now.